If Luffy had told us back then, at the celebration on the Filler Island, what he had done in the past, we wouldn't have countless question marks in our heads right now about Brook and everything he did in his past. Before a misunderstanding arises, many people don't understand how Brook's devil fruit actually works. He has the revive fruit. This fruit works in such a way that when the user dies, his soul can return to his body, and he thus gains another life. That's basically a resurrection. Brook is currently 90 years old and died 52 years ago, at the age of 38. Why I mention this is quite simple. Oda loves to play with numbers and also hide clues for future events within them. And the number 38 is more important in One Piece than ever. Exactly 38 years ago, the God Valley incident took place, which changed the entire One Piece world. And as if that weren't enough, Brook comes from the West Blue, and God Valley is located in the West Blue. Now it gets completely crazy. In One Piece chapter 1160, we see a close-up of the ship of the Rocks Pirates, the main ship of Zebec. Something unbelievable stands out. Most pirate ships have a figurehead. For the Straw Hats, it was at first the Going Merry, with the little lamb. Later on, of course, came the Thousand Sunny, the sun-shaped ship that looks like a lion. But what we see on the ship of the Rocks Pirates is truly shocking. They had simply chained a skeleton to the front of the ship and used it as a figurehead. And if you look closely, you can see that this is no ordinary skeleton. It looks very familiar to us. It's wearing the exact same clothes that Brook wore when we first met him in the Florian Triangle. But that's not the only thing. If we examine it carefully, we notice that the skull of the skeleton is broken in the exact same spot as Brook's skull. The only difference between the skeleton on the Rocks Pirates ship and Brook is the missing afro. Looking even closer, however, we can still see hair growing from the skeleton. So if this really is Brook, it could mean that the Rocks Pirates shaved off his afro as a form of humiliation. After all, we know just how important Brook's hair is to him. When the Straw Hats were in Shaki's bar in Sabaody, Brook said that he had once heard of a rookie named Gol D. Roger, back in his days as a pirate. But if we think about it, that makes less sense. Rocks D. Zebec supposedly killed an admiral 56 years ago, before he even had his own crew, and Brook died 52 years ago. At that time, Roger had only just begun his journey with Rayleigh. Now, according to Brook's own explanation, after he died, he spent a year searching for his body. But after he finally found it, he supposedly remained in the Florian Triangle all that time, which honestly sounds very unrealistic. Because when Moria arrived with his ship in the Florian Triangle, Brook found it immediately, and that was only 7 years ago. And in One Piece, there are no coincidences. Even when the Straw Hats themselves entered the Florian Triangle 2 years ago, Brook found them right away. To me, this only means one thing. Brook didn't just sit around in the Florian Triangle doing nothing all those years. He must have been involved in other things that might shock us once they are revealed. And one of those things could be that Brook once served as the figurehead of the Rocks Pirates ship. That the Rocks Pirates were in the Florian Triangle at some point is something we can be pretty sure of. They might even have been the ones who defeated the Rumbar Pirates back then. At the very least, this would explain how Brook even came to know of Gol D. Roger, because he was also present at the God Valley incident. Since the Rocks Pirates disbanded after God Valley, we stumble upon another problem surrounding Brook. Yet another time gap that needs to be filled to make sense of how Brook ended up in the Florian Triangle later, when the Straw Hats and even Moria appeared there. On this point, we actually received some interesting information from Brook himself. He once said that before joining the Rumbar Pirates, he had been the leader of a royal guard in a certain kingdom. And during the Elbaf arc, we learned that he even knew Gunko, one of the Holy Knights. This means that Brook once had direct ties to the Celestial Dragons and the world government. We also saw that 56 years ago, Gunko was at Imu-sama's side, at the very time when Rocks D. Zebec killed an admiral, and even managed to reach the Room of Flowers where Imu resides. And since Brook only sailed with the Rumbar Pirates for 3 years, this means that prior to those 3 years, he was still serving as the leader of the Royal Guard. It can't be a coincidence that we still haven't been shown who led the Holy Knights before Garling. At the very least, we can say this: if Brook really was the leader of the Holy Knights, then it would explain perfectly how he knew Gunko. After all, Gunko is confirmed to be a celestial dragon, not someone from another kingdom, so the only place Brook and Gunko could have met would have been there. And as the leader of the Holy Knights, Brook could even have served as a kind of instructor, training future Holy Knights. Brook's current state certainly leaves plenty of room for speculation. I mean, all of his skin is gone, so if he ever had the Holy Knights tattoo, it wouldn't be visible now, since all we can see is his skeleton. But it would be absolutely insane if this man could one day regenerate and regain his skin. The scar on his skull, of course, would remain, because we've already seen with the Gorosei that their scars from the past don't vanish even though they now have regenerative powers. This would also explain why Brook eventually returned to the Florian Triangle. That's where a gigantic monster exists, one that the world must never learn about. And before Moria came along to do the dirty work of the world government, killing everyone who entered the Florian Triangle or stealing their shadows, it could very well have been Brook who killed anyone that dared to enter. It would also make sense why the world government didn't bring Brook back to Mary Jewise, where the Holy Knights are, because he's just a skeleton now, and the other celestial dragons would be terrified of him. On top of that, many people forget that Brook already had the scar on his head before he even joined the Rumbar Pirates, which means we could be dealing with a case of memory loss. After all, there are characters who have lost their memories for far less. Big Mom is one example, and of course the most famous one is Sabo. This would mean that Brook doesn't actually remember everything, and that over the course of the story his memories could return, revealing Brook's true self, who he really is, and what his true intentions are. Now it's your turn. Write your thoughts about Brook in the comments. You know it yourselves. Something about him just doesn't add up. And for anyone saying, no, hey, Brook is fine, you guys are just overreacting. No, we are not overreacting. These are not coincidences. It all points towards something bigger. So be honest with yourselves and start speculating about what's really hidden behind Brook. Personally, I think I'm definitely on the right track. I'd say, see you next time on my channel. Goodbye.